Oh, man, what a great start. Shout out to the great Mitchell Carroll. Go check out DMVR Locker for some great merch. This is the Denver Sports Podcast. He's the man, the myth, the legend, AJ Haefele. And with AJ on, you know we have to be presented by the homies at Breckenridge Brewery and the Avalanche Amber Ale. Check them out at the old breckbrew.com beer locator. AJ, how are you doing on this lovely morning in the Mile High City?
This is much earlier than I normally get up.
I know, man.
My alarm went off at 8:45, and I thought, only for Andre.
It's so true. Only for Andre to talk prospects and AJ do this. It's a special occasion. No, I know. I had to shower while I was still getting the kiddo ready. You know, usually I have the luxury of dropping her off, answering some emails, and then jumping in the shower. Not today.
Yeah, no.
We had some real prospect talk to do, man.
I solved all of life's problems when I learned that I was a night showerer.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I pick out my clothes for the next day, the night before. So I get up and I just grab them and go.
That's efficiency right there. I need it not for cleanliness. I need a shower to wake up.
I know a lot of people feel that way, but that's why caffeine exists. And
I know, which, I know.
You know.
I need that extra boost.
It's the only caffeine I'm allowed to have during the day is in the morning, and then after that, it's just water.
I'm on that too. Dude, ever since Woj made the crazy proclamation,
dude, it drove me nuts
that Wemby was the greatest prospect of all time, I was like, that bugs me, and I'm sure it bugs AJ, and I'm so happy we have yet to talk about this off screen, and we just get to have these organic combos right here, right now on TDSP. Denver prospects, all-time prospects, and current prospects in Denver sports. If there's anyone to do this pod with, it's you. I'm genuinely hyped for this, man. So, thanks for making it on.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Of course, AJ Superstar from DMVR Avalanche. Check out all the off-season stuff. Doing more draft stuff on Fridays with Rudo and you?
Yeah, we this week we have Chris Peters coming on, formerly of ESPN and now with Flow Hockey.
One of the guys for those hockey rankings.
Exactly.
So, great get. Check all that out. So yeah, man, I was doing some research for this pod, and I was looking up the greatest prospects, most hyped, I think is maybe a standard we want to get into more, in American sports history. And I thought the list was pretty good. It's from Fox Sports. LeBron was 1.
Okay.
Elway was 2.
Okay.
Bryce Harper was 3. And when we want to talk more specifically with Denver prospects, it kind of starts and ends the conversation at number 1 with John Elway, right?
Yes.
Like the level of hype, the tier of NFL prospect that he was. He's still brought up now when you talk about the no-brainer NFL prospects to ever come out. John Elway is one of the first 2 or 3 names that are brought up unanimously, period.
Definitely.
And then, all the controversy between him having the option to go to the Yankees because he's that much of a freak athlete.
Yep.
Forcing the Colts to trade him, from the first overall pick. So the conversation at 1, super easy.
It's crazy to me that 1983 NFL draft,
dude,
had all the hype with the quarterbacks, and it still holds up.
I know. And it's crazy.
Who was drafted first in that thing? And who lived up to it?
Yep.
It's so funny to me now. I've never felt older in my life than when I watch younger football fans go to John Elway's football reference page and be like, but look at all the interceptions that he threw. And you're like, my man does not know what a freak John Elway was. And I mean, it sucks for us. We obviously grew up on John Elway as the guy in Denver.
I mean,
but we were not around for his prospect status.
Right.
But it true, legendary.
Just
literally, you're not incorrect when you say that they still reference him.
Yeah, all the time
during the NFL draft, where they're like, oh, and it's crazy because there are years where he won't get brought up because that caliber of prospect is not in play.
Right. It's a once in a generation type
Right.
talent.
When a guy that should be on that list somewhere a little bit lower, but when Andrew Luck showed up,
Yep.
that was a lot of the conversation. It was John Elway, it was Peyton Manning, it was Andrew Luck. Those were you just couldn't miss.
The can't miss guys at quarterback. And now you might bring up Trevor Lawrence. Caleb Williams is someone that'll have people intrigued going forward.
I have always been very pro Trevor Lawrence, so I think that's where that's headed. But,
Yeah, but I mean, and just think of what Elway's done for this town, that like from a sports perspective.
Oh, yeah.
As an executive, bringing the championships. I mean, 77's the first time the Broncos ever make the postseason, which is crazy to think.
It is.
And then, the draft happens in 83. By 87, the drive's happening. And next thing you know, they're in 4 Super Bowls in a 6-year span. And then, our generation, it all culminates in 98, 99.
Back to back.
So I think just a tier above the rest, because he fits in that conversation we'll have later of the greatest outside of Denver sports. No brainers.
Yeah, the second most successful Denver athlete ever. Behind Joe Sakic.
Okay. No, that's fair. And then, I mean, both have the executive card they can play as well. Where it's like, we literally built the foundation and then
and then
gave you that
retired and
second
then came back and did it
home.
again.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely another tier for them. After that, I'm sure you could make an argument for Mac. Another great draft class. Maybe not the 83 NFL draft class. Maybe not the 03 NBA draft class, which Melo, I think, would be a candidate as well.
I think Melo, I would have Melo ahead of McKinnon.
I like that.
I had, I spent a lot of time yesterday talking with Avs people about this answer from the Avs perspective. And there were a number of answers, and I was I was trying to keep it outside of the Avs like diehard bubble of the people that are super in it. So no, the answer's not gonna be Chris Begra or something,
right.
Those guys that the really the diehards like us absolutely love. No, it's not that guy. And I really think I don't want to derail from Melo, because I do really think that Melo is you got to remember I know how everybody feels about Melo now, especially in Denver.
Absolutely.
But when he was drafted, the fact that he got to the 3rd pick was a low-key miracle.
Well, I mean, in retrospect,
yeah,
franchise altering that Darko doesn't drop to them at 3 and gets taken at 2, because say what you will about Melo, but that pick swap is Jamal Murray.
Yeah.
Jamal Murray drops to 7. He does not drop to 9 or 10 where the Nuggets pick would have been.
A franchise altering couple of things, because ESPN just did an oral history of the 2003 draft and the lottery process. And you remember the Nuggets and Cavs were tied.
Yep.
It's a 24.5% chance to win the lotto. Imagine that, 24.5.
The Spurs, who just won the lottery for Wemby, had a 10% chance.
Right.
I think the highest was 12%.
How much has the draft changed?
Right. So much. And back then, you tanked that. It was the right tank. It might have been the most right tank in Denver sports history.
Yeah, they won 11 games that year.
Season to tank in the NBA. They got it right. They have the highest odds with the Cavs and somehow dropped to 3.
Right.
Which remains the highest pick in Nuggets history. They've had the third overall 3 times. Rafe LaFrance? Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. And Melo, of course.
It's funny. This is just like the conversation I had driving in. I was giving Z all this history as
I know.
I was driving in.
Oh, I mean, just doing this research. I was like a kid in a candy store, no doubt. So I derailed you on Melo, but the oral history from 03.
Yeah, and the hype around Melo, because this was right before the one and done era.
Exactly.
Like Melo launched the one and done era.
Right. Before the NBA rules did, Melo did.
Like Melo was the one and done poster boy.
Yes.
Because he was crazy hyped coming out of Oak Hill as a high schooler.
Oh, yeah.
Goes to Syracuse, takes an okay Syracuse team to the national championship, beats my Jayhawks. I hate his guts. And a week later gets drafted by the Nuggets, and I have to love him.
Yeah.
Remains the only NBA jersey I've ever purchased for myself.
Wow, crazy.
Love Melo, but loved Melo.
Loved.
But at the time, his hype as a draft, and the crazy thing is he lived up to it. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
He's what, ninth in NBA history in scoring? Like,
insane.
He lived up to it.
Well, and it's, I mean, in our lifetime, guys who are in their 30s, aside from where we're at now, that was the best stretch. Like pre-Melo, we knew nothing.
For sure.
We all my dad would talk to me about the Nuggets was like, oh yeah, Dikembe Mutombo is really fun, but we couldn't keep him. He left in free agency.
My favorite Nuggets player growing up was Robert Pack.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had a McDice poster and like idolized McDice. Like James Posey was my favorite player.
I also really liked James Posey.
Of course. If you're my age, you love James Posey. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
He was one of the few first-round picks that could actually play in the NBA.
David Thompson's a hard one for me because what his hype was as a college player is there. He goes to when the Nuggets are in the ABA.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just harder in the 70s to gauge, but what he was as a college player, I do think puts him in this tier.
David Thompson definitely would have been, like, definitely in a modern era, definitely would be. Right. People would have been absolutely nuts about him, but the infrastructure was not in place to properly hype a guy that way back then. But
the way basketball was marketed in the 70s especially. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things that set the sports back decades, I think, in many ways. And David Thompson's
There's a reason the NBA Finals was on tape delay in the 80s.
Right. And I mean, I think David Thompson, as much as anyone, is one of the icons of that.
Yeah. And it's too bad, like, his tenure in Denver wasn't.
I know. Because you more talk about David Thompson, the Skywalker from NC State.
Yep.
And had his moments, the dunk contest is an iconic moment in professional basketball history against Julius Erving in Denver, that kind of stuff. Where it gets interesting, AJ, is the Avs. Obviously, we can talk McKinnon, but what I think is really fascinating is Cale Makar, the draft prospect, who was drafted 4th overall, and what at the time we thought was a weakish draft class, does not belong in this conversation.
Yeah.
Cale Makar, the prospect, and how we qualify prospects in like hockey and baseball is different from how we qualify, and we'll get into that more with the current guys in a little later. Cale Makar, the prospect, 2 years at UMass, winning the Hobie Baker, and starting to be like the #1 prospect that wasn't in the NHL yet, I do think belongs in this conversation with Melo, with Mac, with David Thompson.
And it's an interesting designation because imagine if the Nuggets had gotten to draft Melo, and then Melo went back to school for 2 years.
Right. Like dominated at Syracuse.
To the NCAA for 2 more full seasons and then made the NBA.
Yeah.
That would be kind of what became of Cale Makar's career. But in talking about this with people yesterday, the thing with Makar is that when he was drafted, the fan base was very split. And do not, and I will go to my grave angry about this, do not let people who work at other outlets in this city retcon history and act like they were excited about Cale Makar. Because there was not a single employee at certain other outlets that are on the radio.
No way.
That were excited about the fact that they drafted a defenseman who was not 6 feet tall and was not this big hulking bruiser of a defenseman and wanted to trade him for Erik Karlsson the second he got drafted.
Yeah.
Like, there was, and I only bring that up because there was a healthy split on draft day about Makar. The people who were in were really, really in. The people who were not were really upset about it.
He was the ultimate project. I remember us podcasting every week about that draft class in the lead up and being like, don't know, AJ. I watched the highlights. Should he just play on the wing? Is he even a defender?
There was such a question mark
wild.
about his defense because he never played it in the AJHL.
AJHL, that was the other thing, and that we'll get into more. It's like where you come from matters in the hype.
Winning a national championship your freshman year at Syracuse, one of the prime college basketball programs, puts Melo right in front of the entire world. Right in our consciousness, right everywhere. Like it was so in front of us, and
more so than the Alberta Junior League. You're saying?
Yeah, exactly. And the AJHL, which has produced 2 first-round picks in the last 25 years.
Insane. 2 first-rounders in the last 25.
Yeah,
Did the second come after Cale?
Might be, no, it was the first one was Joe Colburn.
Jeez.
Yeah,
Scout the AJHL. My God.
Now, the AJHL has produced some good players. Colton Parayko of the Blues is from there, but first-round picks and top 5 picks? No.
Yeah.
No.
I'd be remiss if I don't bring up Cutler, who I think sneaky is next tier. He was drafted ahead of Matt Liner, right?
Yeah.
The hype was there. Straight out of camp for an AFC championship team.
Man, I don't know that I think it was that hyped.
You don't?
He was like a high first round quarterback, and there's always hype on those guys. But he came out of Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
He was drafted when Jake Plummer had just taken them to an AFC championship game. Like the hype on him. I would put multiple abs in front of Jay Cutler.
Well, and Von Miller, the highest draft pick in Broncos history, that's when he starts entering the conversation.
Yeah.
And I mean, then where do you put the top Rockies guys? I was talking to Patrick about this. Check out Patrick doing some great work. Rockies on a little win streak. Check out the NBR Rockies.
Well, not anymore.
They lost last night?
Yeah. Shit. They got shelled.
I was torn between Tulo and John Gray. And Patrick made the point, I think the John Gray, Eddie Butler hype made John Gray feel a little more hype, maybe.
From a national perspective,
Tulo, though.
The most hyped Rockies prospect ever.
Greg Reynolds.
It was Ian Stewart.
Ian Stewart was another one that I put on my short list.
He was top 5 nationally.
I mean,
he's the highest ranked Rockies prospect in baseball America history at 4. Wow. Rockies only had 2 guys who have ever cracked that top 10 list. Now, guys like Tulo and John Gray, Jeff Francis,
Brendan Rodgers at different points as a prospect.
A bunch of those guys, they've had a bunch of guys in the 11 to 20 range.
Yeah.
But only 2 that ever cracked the top 10.
And it's Ian Stewart.
The one guy that I actually totally forgot about that I was looking up last night because I wanted to see how hyped he actually was. He was billed as a frontline starter, but Chinhui Sao back in 2000.
He's in those earlier lists. Yep.
Oof, yeah. The hype on him was insane.
Well, and when you talk MLB prospects, there are some Cuban and guys coming from Japan and stuff where like that unknown almost intensified that hype,
Yeah.
And he's the kind of the one big example for the Rockies. Will and Rosario, but like it's not like
I mean Ubaldo came
Frankie
out of there,
in some ways, Morales was a bigger.
He's the other one.
Yeah.
He was the other top 10.
Because his stuff was a lefty with electric stuff.
He was a power lefty that could do everything.
Yeah.
He just couldn't control the baseball. Like that was ultimately his thing, his downfall.
He was a beast.
But he was the other guy that made it into BA's top 10. So it's funny, the 2 highest rated prospects ever for the Rockies did not pan out. But they have
very baseball. I know Nolan we haven't even brought up. He was more like a fringe top 50 guy. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was in there, but it was like he was like 44,
Right.
Only 44th best prospect or whatever. But and as a prospect, and Arenado's defense was a huge question.
Right, his feet, not a 5-tool player, 4-tool at best. But we had questions about that defense. Right. Yeah.
How funny is that now? Like that's one of the things. Like
it's wild that's his profile. Honestly, The one doubt is the thing he was maybe ends up being the best ever.
So, I will say from a Rockies perspective, they've had a lot of hyped guys in terms of a national hype, high draft pick, and a guy that lives up to the billing. I think that the best combination of those is Tulo.
I do too. And then how quickly he translated.
Yeah,
He's drafted top 6. Another all-time great draft.
Yeah, I mean he's drafted I think 7th overall, and then he's in the minors for like 10 seconds.
Yep. Yeah, and he's a rookie on the 07 team.
Right.
With Chris Iannetta, another highly hyped
and
prospect.
He gets the 2007 Rookie of the Year stolen from him by Ryan Braun.
Never forget.
Yep.
Who's also in that super hyped first round.
He was good.
Yeah. Is your chest hair out of control like a Frankie Morales fastball?
It's really not.
That's great.
Thank you for asking, though. You're really broing me up here trying to do this publicly and making sure that I'm keeping the chest hair under control. I really
I am. I look out for you.
This is what family is like, guys.
That's right. This is what family does, and this is what Manscaped does for you. We've got a little playoff read here. Whether you're an NBA or NHL guy, you want to give your Nuggets the best clippers to rid them of pubes and help them see the summer sun. Don't let your little devils go wild. Use the Lawnmower 4.0 and get your boys as smooth as jazz. There was something about as kissable as the Stanley Cup up here, which I really thought was phenomenal. You could call him the Larry OB,
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. So use the code DMVR for 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. All sorts of awesome offers right now. Lawnmower 4.0. They've got the crop preserver, which I know our golf guys swear by. Check it all out. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code DMVR at manscaped.com. Yeah, it's summertime. Get it right. And right now, summertime playoffs, game time is where you want to be.
It's great, man.
I mean, for starters, I can find the cheapest tickets to take the little one to Rapids, Rockies. Mm-hmm. A 5-year-old, it's not so much about the on-field product. That's about, is parking going to be convenient? Mm-hmm. Can I get in and out?
Yep.
Is it cheap so I don't feel bad spending $12 on cotton candy,
Yeah.
Game Time makes sure that's true. And right now when you sign up on Game Time, use code DMVR, get $20 off. That's basically 2 Rockies tickets right there for me and the little one.
Yep.
Or me and the Pids. And right now we're giving out our game of the week. I think it has to be the first ever NBA Finals in Denver sports history with the opponent TBD. But right now, tickets to section 352 can be found for under $650. It's the best prices I've seen around. Game Time, I think you never know with something like the finals, but you wait a little later, even with the finals, to get you hooked up. Be part of history at Game Time. Or, you want to laze around at a more open venue, do that as well. But game of the week, NBA Finals tickets on Game Time right now. Best deals you'll find out there. So there you go. Okay, AJ. This is the Wemby combo. Victor Wembanyama, generational talent.
Totally.
In the NBA draft, like no one we've ever seen before.
Yeah, and it's really the physical traits.
Exactly.
That are, because all the other stuff, like, one of the things that blew my mind at the time, and in retrospect with how it's played out, looks even more ridiculous, was how Luka was treated when he came out. I 4.
He's the most can't miss prospect of all time, I think. Like, the fact that Luka isn't in this conversation for some is bonkers.
There was there was nothing left for him to prove. But physically, there were questions about the athleticism and
People want
how's
him to
that
do
going to
what they do
translate?
with
They're going to
Jokic,
nitpick it,
yeah.
and that's how DeAndre Ayton goes 1. Like,
Nuts.
yeah,
Insane. I know.
It's sort of funny to me that Luka ended up like dealing such a death blow to this era of Suns. Just how it all worked out.
I know. And then, I mean, the hype of a LeBron kind of feels like...
So LeBron for
stateside.
me, LeBron for me, number 1.
Like, Wemby's still in France. We're not like broadcasting his games on ESPN and making it prime time.
I was telling Z coming in, I was like, I remember this.
Yeah.
He was on the cover of ESPN, the magazine, years before he got drafted.
Yeah.
He was next when he was like 15.
Yes.
Like,
AJ, how many times have you watched that Oak Hill St. Vincent tape?
Right.
How many other
Right.
high school
Like,
games can you say that about,
right,
man?
Like,
how many other amateur games can you say that about?
they had when Victor was on ESPN this last year, going 1-on-1 against Scoot Henderson's team.
Yeah. Yeah, which was fun this offseason. That was cool.
Was less hyped than LeBron on high school LeBron in high school back
Absolutely. It was less hyped than Zion matchups at Duke.
then. Fair point.
Let's be
Fair
real.
point.
We forgot about Zion,
Yeah.
but like, do you remember the hoopla on ESPN when Zion
Yeah.
was finally playing his first NBA game that season? It was nuts, man.
Remember when he finally played his first college game?
Yeah. Remember what a big deal it was when he broke a shoe in game?
Right.
Like, I still think that's gone more viral than any, like, Wemby highlight of, like, missing a 3 and then tipping it back in.
Yeah.
Also, as great as Wemby is, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at UCLA in the peak of the UCLA dynasty, again, 70s, it's harder to compare,
Yeah.
but, like, there was one channel. Everyone knew about Kareem.
Yeah.
Everyone knew about UCLA. That was a can't-miss dude.
Yeah.
Tim Duncan was a can't-miss dude, you know?
Oh man.
And how that translates immediately. And what really bugged me is the non-consideration of hockey. Because, I mean, Sid the Kid, McDavid.
Yeah, so
there are some
the
real
one-
heavy hitters
the one that
belong in this
The
combo.
ones that really stood out to me, the ones that I remember as just growing up during my lifetime, you know, I was not old enough for the Alexander Daigle, Eric Lindros. Like, I was just not old enough for that.
Lindros
But
a fun one for Denver.
Lindros was, the hype on him was so insane, dude. Like,
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
it was crazy, but
I mean, look at the trade.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's self-explanatory right there, what the hype was for
Right.
one player.
But the hype on some of those guys, the guys that I really remember being crazy hyped, were Vinny Lecavalier.
Okay.
And then that might have been my recollection of that one might be more tilted because the Avs, Pierre Lacroix, was in love with him and offered all 4 first-round picks that he had accumulated in the 1998 draft to try to trade up. And Tampa accepted that offer, fun moment in history, and said, add Peter Forsberg.
Real slide indoors moment right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, if you went back to, you know, some Nordique stuff, Fauxpas maybe falls into some of this.
Hyped prospect stuff?
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the guy that they obviously ended up trading for Lindros,
Yeah,
was
right.
like the primary prospect. He was a 6th pick that same year.
Right.
But then won the Calder the last year in Quebec, and then first
Like
year in
McKinnon.
Denver, obviously
Right.
blew up and
Yeah.
helped lead them to a Stanley Cup. So,
And obviously one of the all-time greats.
yep, and is obviously, yes, one of,
Okay, who else would
I
you
would say
bring
one of
up
the
in
5
that?
greatest Avs now.
Okay. Yes, absolutely.
Used to be 3. Now,
I know.
Now there
I
are
know, man.
conversations.
I know.
So,
That's what's crazy is to think, like, I was just thinking this morning, like, in that draft, had we thought, not only was it insane to think Makar would have been in the conversation for greatest defenseman ever,
Yeah.
but greatest Avs defenseman ever even seemed absurd, right?
I mean, yes, because they had Rob Blake in his prime.
Yeah.
Now it's pretty easy. Like now you're just like, yeah, this isn't
I
easy,
know.
like very easily him.
Well, and I mean, that's the thing about high upside prospects. Is like sometimes that high upside hits.
Yeah.
Like, there might feel like a wide variance, but when the scenario ends up being the high end,
Yeah,
then
you're right about the NHL kind of being overlooked though, and the Sidney Crosby thing happened. It sucked because it was Ovechkin and Crosby back to back during the lockout. Like, and the lockout took all that momentum away from those guys who were like Ovechkin shattered all these records, all these Russian records that are now getting broken by Matvei Michkov this year, who we don't even know, who could go any number of, guy could get drafted 8th because of all the different things that are happening with him. But you look at all the different hypes around these guys. You know, Crosby was just a surefire. He did absolutely everything. His numbers were unbelievable. He was completely dominant. He won everything under the sun. He was. That's where I think he separates from McDavid. Is that Crosby won everything, and McDavid, outside of individual stuff, and it's tough. Obviously, hockey is such a team-oriented sport that it's really hard to come down on him.
Sounds like Luka and Wemby a little bit.
But with McDavid, he hasn't really had the same level of team success, but he's also gotten robbed of international opportunities with the way that the Olympics changed their rules.
Yeah,
because one of Crosby's career highlights for a guy that again has won everything, and you're talking about a guy that has won 3 Stanley Cups, Art Ross trophies, Hart trophies, the works.
Yeah, and
one of the career highlights of him is scoring the golden goal in the Vancouver Olympics to beat the United States in overtime.
Yeah. I remember Sakic at the Olympics. I mean,
McDavid doesn't have that kind of moment. He doesn't have a signature career moment, and he doesn't have those accomplishments. But individually, you have to look at Connor McDavid and say he's lived up to every inch of that hype.
I'd say he
has more 100-point seasons than than some teams have had.
Well, and he's LeBron Wemby-esque, and it's like, wait, how's the biggest dude on the ice the fastest guy?
Yeah,
and
like,
how's he always on the ice? Like, I blink and he's back on. Like, he plays half the game. It's
this year. This is the thing. So Connor Bedard this year is crazy hyped for all the right reasons. But the biggest thing with him is he's 5'10". Like, we occasionally, when we would get hyped on Bedard on the Av show, we would occasionally have that one guy that always exists who's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is he really going to be that good? And you're like, stop.
Yeah.
Just, yes.
It's like you realize the entire scouting industry's watched this guy for years and are in consensus. And you're the one guy who's like, I don't know. I read the scout report says he's 5'10". We sure, guys? I'm out. Like, oh no, you're right, bro. We all overlooked that the last 3 years.
Yeah.
My bad. I forgot to look at the report's height list.
5'10" being a mitigating factor in a league where it has never been a better time to be a shorter player in NHL history than it is now.
People are so goofy with the drafting sometimes.
But that's the difference between a guy like Bedard and Wemby. Is that Wemby, from a physical standpoint, combining the physical attributes with just the skill level. This is why Woj goes on ESPN and says he's the most hyped prospect in North American sports history, team sports history. Because we've never seen the physical freak that he is. Like, you look at a guy like LeBron, and physically he was also, I mean, he has a power forward's body with point guard skills.
Right. It was essentially like, oh, he's Magic Johnson with Karl Malone's body.
Exactly.
Maybe a little more like MJ scoring to him.
Right. LeBron was everything.
Mm-hmm.
Including that high-end athleticism.
Right. He literally checked off every box and then circled back and doubled down on it.
Right. And some of them he's still checking.
Right.
The guy looks exhausted, and what he did in Game 4 against the Nuggets was tremendous. I mean, it's incredible. The guy's as a basketball player, it's an unimpeachable resume. I know a lot of people want to nitpick and be like, "Oh, he's lost how many times in the finals?"
Sure.
Like, just shut up. No, I don't want to hear it.
I mean, ultimately,
he's unbelievable.
Top 3 most physically imposing, and also top 3 smartest. Like that combo does not occur ever.
Just how cerebral, and it's funny because we're talking about all these things. It's like, are we accidentally describing Nikola Jokic?
I know,
but obviously as a prospect, drafted in the second round for a reason.
Yep.
But with Wemby, like, that's where the hype is. That's where you're talking about a guy who could dominate on both ends of the floor in a way that the NBA has just never seen.
More than any prospect ever, until I see him in person, I'm going to keep... There's a small part of me that feels like, is this CGI? Like, is this 7'5", might actually be 7'6", who can, like, dribble, step back 3?
Yeah.
Is this real? Am I being pranked?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's...
I mean, that's the thing. Like, for me, it's basically just like, how strong is he going to be able to get? How much is he really going to be able to fill out?
Yeah.
To take advantage of that height, because if he becomes a 7'4" jump shooter, there's a lot of wasted potential there.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you need him to be able to dominate inside and out, and that's where I'm not even saying it's a question, because I don't have the question on it. It's mostly just like, what does it end up actually looking like? How does it develop?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's
the thing with LeBron is that it was a straightforward projection. It was an all-time great projection, but you could see where in the NBA you knew what he was going to do. You knew how he was going to dominate games. And for me, I'm just curious about, that's my one thing on Wemby, is I'm just like, we've never seen it. He's such a unicorn.
He's such a unicorn, and he's at that size probably only can play the 5, and I'm not sure he is a 5 right now. Like, I actually think Jokic right now would bully the hell out of him, and watch France against Team USA, and it's God, I'm forgetting the thick center. Mitch, I'm sure, knows. All I can think of is Kenneth Langford, but kind of gets into Wemby's body and is able to kind of take him to the rack. Like, he's really long and quite skinny.
Yeah.
And basically any concerns you heard about, like Chet Holmgren last year, to a lesser extent, are the Wemby, and it's same guy who bothers us with Connor Bedard, who's like, I don't know, I looked on the sheet of paper, it says he's 5'10". Ultimately, that's the concern, is it doesn't take hours of tape, it doesn't take talking to scouts or coaches or flying to France to watch him.
Yeah.
But you're like, yeah, he's 7'5". Will his body hold up?
Yeah.
Pretty simple question.
Yeah, well, and
no simple answer.
Guys who have been that big in the NBA have
Kenneth Lofton
have developed foot problems.
Guys that big, Yao.
Yeah, Yao is the best example of like a really good one. But guys, I mean, you remember back in the day, a guy like Sean Bradley or George Mirasane,
right?
Those guys that are like freakishly big, even for the NBA, freakishly big. Consistently foot problems.
His best comp is Ralph Sampson.
All of the different. God, Ralph Sampson, man, you want to talk about hype?
Kind of fits too.
Yeah,
kind of fits. I mean, Ewing's another guy we haven't brought up.
Well, and
all-time hype.
I was gonna bring up Olajuwon as well, because the dream. Well, it's so funny when you go back and you look at
all-time draft.
Well, you will, and when you go back and you watch that episode of Last Dance, where Rod Thorne, who was GM of the Bulls with the third pick, was like, I'd have taken Hakeem.
Right. Yep.
Like, it was a no-brainer at one. Doubt. And then you look at the career that he had, and you're like, well, he justified it. Like, at the time, like, you definitely were not taking Michael Jordan over Hakeem Olajuwon.
Well, that'd be insanity.
Yeah. Like, the face of Phi Slamba Jama, and
right, exactly.
It ended up being one of the all-time best centers in NBA history on his own terms. So, that guy was, man.
David here saying unpopular opinion, but Connor Bedard is a better prospect than Victor Wembanyama. Is that too hot?
It is for me because with Wemby, you're talking about, for me, the clear-cut best NBA prospect since LeBron.
You think?
Yeah, I mean...
Oh, no, I just think of like Odin and Luka and Zion, as I mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, the only guy that I would really entertain,
best and most hyped.
Yeah, the guy that I would entertain would be Luka, and because I didn't understand that one at all. He was such a dominant European player as a teenager. He accomplished everything. He won all the hardware. He did absolutely everything under the sun that you could do in EuroLeague over there. And for the NBA to have given him that treatment on draft night was like, this is why you guys are stupid and suck at this.
Pretty wild.
So yeah,
pretty wild.
Yeah, and the team that moved heaven and earth to be like, what's going on here, has benefited greatly from it.
Yeah.
So I would say that, but with Bedard, you're saying, is he the best prospect since McDavid? Is he the best prospect since Crosby? I mean,
we hype up a lot of these prospects in hockey too, man.
Is he a better prospect than either one of those guys, or is he as good as? I don't know the answer to that, but with me...
Who's the guy the Rangers took first overall? Lafreniere?
Yeah.
I feel like he was getting about this type of hype.
Well, that's because he scored 140 points a year in the Q. He was a dominant junior player, and then he goes to a place, by the way, that has failed to develop all of their top picks.
Oh, it's...
All of those guys have hit a wall.
You look at their bottoms. I'm intrigued by every single guy, but that shows how much of a draft guy I am. It's like, oh, that's your...
Yeah, so, I mean, fair point on Lafreniere, but he was not supposed to be... Like, he was supposed to be much, much, much better than he is. And a top-line player and an all-star and all that.
Yeah.
But we were not talking about him as he's going to be the best at his position. He's going to be number one. He's going to dominate, this and that. Right. With Bedard, we're talking about, like, he should be a 40-goal guy sooner than later. And that might just be his rookie year. He should really be... He should be scoring 50 per year.
Crazy.
Like, if he's not scoring like early career Stamkos levels of 50 to 60 every year, it will be a disappointment. The hype on him is enormous, and to the point where maybe it's unfair, but that's what happens
with these
when you
level
score a goal per game
yeah.
for multiple years.
Well, and it's the other thing about all these prospects; they've basically all worked out.
Yeah,
we'll get into some baseball guys in a sec. First, I want to shout out.
Baseball is so unfair too.
Baseball's tough, and yeah, we'll get into that in just a sec. Let's get into some favorite Circle K snacks. AJ, do you have a go-to? Drinking some Mountain Dew right now. Circle K will have you handled there.
Gas station snack, corn nuts.
Dude, corn nuts are having a moment right now.
Dude.
Circle K read comes up. We're always talking corn nuts if I'm on the pod.
Very good. Circle K also has as a Mountain Dew truther. I understand Mountain Dew is nectar of the gods.
He does.
Circle K has a Mountain Dew only flavor for the Dew people out there.
Dang.
Yeah, the purple lightning.
That's elite right there. I'm kind of coming around to corn nuts as well. Love me some Cheetos. Cheetos are
what kind?
Just a classic crunchy. You know?
Just the crunchy ones. Yeah. It's funny. That's the only Cheeto I like avoid at this point.
Really?
Yeah. The only crunchy one that I'll eat is the jalapeno one, which is the only jalapeno flavored thing I like.
Those are pretty good. The fire ones are good too.
Yeah, flaming hot are fine.
Flaming. It's pretty good.
You know what actually ended up being surprisingly good was the flaming hot Funyun variation.
Yeah. I always consider getting that mix box for the office when I grab snacks. Yeah, should I go that route next?
You should.
Time? Okay.
Live it up, man.
We're gonna try that out. Check out Circle K. Find the nearest, the one nearest you, and check out all their great snacks. When you shop at Circle K, it's like when you win the lottery and an all-time great prospect. It's You've won it all. You've done it.
That same dude, when the Spurs won the Wemby lotto, that dude's reaction when he's all standing up, let's go. That's how I feel when
you walk into a circle.
Yep, and they've got ranch corn nuts in stock. The same reaction. Let's go.
That's amazing. And then shout out to the homies at Breckenridge Brewery and their Avalanche Amber Ale, a classic American amber blend. A little chocolatey, a little caramel malt. It's well-rounded. It's a great beer anytime. Of course, this is also strawberry sky time. I always love crushing a good lager, summer, thirsty. Crush it up, watch the Nugs, get nervous. Basketball, more than any other sport, I cannot sit still while I watch. I have to do things.
Yeah.
It's kind of an unbearable sport to watch when the stakes are this high.
It's tough because during the conference final against the Lakers, I spent most of the games doing other things. And then when the fourth quarter started, I would lock in.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like maximum stress. And I was like, this is why I do other things for 3 quarters.
It's tough, man. So Breckenridge Brewery, they're a great homie when you're stressing, watching the Nugs. Breck Brew, beer locator, find an Avalanche Amber Ale near you. Okay, let's continue that talk. I cut you off there.
Yeah.
You were finishing your thought on Bedard, and we were getting into some baseball prospects.
Yeah, just
quick.
with Bedard, the reason why I would have Wemby over him right now is just that
tools.
Bedard, yeah, the physical stuff there, and also just again, like, is Bedard a better prospect than McDavid? I would say no. I think he's a better natural goal scorer, but Connor McDavid just had a 60-goal season.
Well, I know. That's the other thing is when these guys live up to it, it's hard to look back and be like, because
what were the expectations for Connor McDavid?
We've yet to unpack Wembanyama and Bedard.
Yeah.
It's hard to compare to guys who are literally some of the all-time greatest in their sports.
And guys who are revolutionizing their sports still with the way that with the way that McDavid's in the middle of his prime and doing what he's doing. Right. But with Wembanyama, it's Wemby's just like, we just haven't seen him before. And with Bedard, it's like, is he the best since McDavid, Crosby?
Yeah. Right.
There are some, even Ovechkin, with the way that Bedard's goal scoring is his best trait.
What's his best comp, Bedard? Because Wemby, part of what makes him unique is there's kind of no comp. I mean, 7'5" Ralph Sampson might be the comp, but it's kind of an absurd one too. Like, it's such a different era. He's more like 7'5" KD in some ways.
I don't know. I think he's kind of a combination. I think he's more of a supercharged Stamkos more than anything else.
That kind of like both sides of the ice.
Yeah, where impact. He's a guy that can absolutely just wire a puck and score from anywhere on the ice at any time, but is also a high-end playmaker. And I'm of the opinion that Stamkos' career is underrated. Just because he's now next to Vasilevsky and Kucherov, who've had, and the injuries took so much from him.
Yeah.
But you still look at him now, and he's people talk about the Lightning. Stamkos like the 4th guy they bring up,
right?
Which is a testament to the Lightning, obviously. But
how great that core is.
But if I had to pick which guy, between Kucherov and Point and all those, I'd pick Stamkos. And so, anyway, I for me, it's kind of like a really just a turbocharged Steven Stamkos,
which is
just
saying
a little
smaller.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's I think that's where I would have him. It's not like a sexy answer of like, oh, he's a combination of these 3 Hall of Famers.
Right.
It's off the top of my head because I haven't really thought about it too much. He's always been such a singular talent that it's like it's like trying to compare Cale Makar. It's like, look, I guess Bobby Orr, but really it's just Cale Makar is Cale Makar.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's
That's and again, that's where Wemby goes. Is he's just there? He's incomparable.
we've got Flo in the chat who lives in France and actually has seen
That's a
Wemby
bummer.
play multiple times. So I think he enjoys it. He was DMing me today about watching Wemby, so he can kind of verify that Wemby is real. And I mean, it's not Luka stats, but it's pretty insane stats at the professional level for this guy, and his just the way he's wired. Everything you hear about Wemby off the court too, it just seems like he gets it. He's the right dude.
And that's one of the things about like the prospecting, and we're about to get into this with Bryce Harper in baseball for sure. But one of the thing about when you're talking about, especially the NHL and MLB, because they're drafted so far out from contributing at the highest level, is that you are taking literal teenagers and trying to figure out who they're going to be in 8 years when they are in their physical prime and they're 25 years old. And seeing all the skills and the talent, and the tools, and all that is one element of it. It's got to be there. You've got to have it. But when you're talking about these transcendent prospects, these next level guys, the ones that we remember year after year, not just first overall picks, but the guys that we really remember as, oh my God, as a prospect, there's an emotional intelligence, there's an IQ, there's a groundedness, there's a sense of maturity there. And when you talk about Wemby, away from, off the court, it seems like he's got it totally. And that was one thing when you look at a guy like Sidney Crosby, you knew it. You knew,
dude,
the intangibles were sky high to go along with transcendent talent.
1000%.
You were talking about a guy in Sidney Crosby who was absolutely obsessed with greatness and ultra competitive and was driven to maximize his unbelievable talent.
Makes all the difference. I think it's one of the great separators with all these guys we've talked about is between the years, you can't be that great at that young of an age if you don't want it, if you don't separate yourselves. There's plenty of guys with the tools who just, Bull and Wemby, maybe an unfair, but like the traits aren't that far off.
Sure.
It's the mental and
there's
the
a
work ethic.
There's a drive there. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you go and you look at the Nathan McKinnon draft and you look at which was a crazy draft at the top. There were 4 guys that absolutely everybody in the league wanted to crack at. And you look at the guys who got drafted 1, 2, and the guys who got drafted 3, 4. There's a clear line there between 2 ultra competitive guys who were driven and had the right mindsets in McKinnon and Barkov, and 2 guys who kind of got a little wayward in their careers in Jonathan Drouin and Seth Jones.
And Seth Jones is the really interesting.
And and Jones a little different because he had some really high end moments, and Drouin never has in the NHL.
Right.
But it is an interesting. You look at the competitiveness and the drive, and you look at kind of the off ice stuff, and you see 2 guys in Barkov and McKinnon who it clicked for them. They got it. They had traits there.
Right.
That helped them elevate even when they got to the NHL, even though both guys did take a little bit of time in the NHL.
Yeah, and Barkov and the Panthers
and
might
Barkov,
just be, huh?
Then you fast forward a couple more weeks, I think Barkov's going to have the same number of Stanley Cups as McKinnon. So
crazy. What's crazy is in all this convo, to bring it back to Barron, is, as you said, there's a guy in Russia breaking all of Ovechkin's records.
Yeah.
And he's not coming up in any of these conversations.
He would have had he.
You'd think
had he had a normal draft year, had he not signed a 3-year contract to stay in Russia, had there not been an ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, which has put into jeopardy the ability of NHL clubs to bring Russian players to North America and keep them here.
Yeah.
Because there have been some really scary incidents with Russian players over the last 18 months that
I think of Panarin last season.
There are things we could talk about off camera that I could tell you
I bet.
Scare the bejesus out of you.
I bet.
It's a real problem in the NHL right now. In the hockey, just in the hockey world, there are some guys that get put into really, really, really bad life situations just because they're Russian and they're trying to live out their dreams in North America.
Right.
And so there's a lot of like outside stuff that is preventing the Matvei Michkov conversation from being louder in this type of setting. But make no mistake how I personally feel about it. If I'm the Anaheim Ducks at number 2, I'm taking Matvei Michkov, and I'm not even caring about Adam Fantilli. I don't give a shit about Adam Fantilli. I think Matvei Michkov is so far and away the second best prospect in this draft and is closer to Connor Bedard's level than he is to Adam Fantilli's level.
How likely are they to actually do that? Because at DraftKings Sportsbook right now,
highly
you could
unlikely.
Get Michkov at plus 800 for the second overall pick.
Highly
plus
unlikely.
350 as the third overall pick.
I would say highly unlikely.
Not happening.
Yeah.
Are you a Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller at 2 guy? Because you can bet on that at DraftKings Sportsbook as well.
Just
right
because
now.
Certainly because of the team.
Yeah.
Brandon Miller. For my money, I think Scoot Henderson doesn't go to Portland either. I think Portland either finds a home for that pick or they take one of the twins.
One of the Thompson twins. Yeah. You can get great odds on everything AJ just said, from the Michkov stuff.
I think it'll be Amon for the record.
To Amon being 3rd overall at DraftKings Sportsbook, where, of course, if right now you are a new DraftKings user, you can sign up, bet $5 on an NBA money line. Imagine getting like a $5 bet on the Nuggets against the Heat and then winning $150 in bonus bets. Mm-hmm. What a gift that would be. It'd be like hitting a massive parlay.
Which, for game 3.
Were you close?
I had a 6-leg parlay. I have 5 of them. The sixth leg was I did this purposely. It was an emotional hedge. Because I was so convinced the Nuggets were going to lose game 3 that I emotionally hedged and put a bunch of money. Actually put my entire DraftKings balance on a 6-leg parlay. I hit the first 5, and the 6th leg was the Lakers had to win. So when the Nuggets won, I didn't care about the money. I was totally good because the Nuggets were up 3-0, and I was like, "This is the first time I've ever lost a big bet and felt amazing about it."
The beauty of an emotional hedge. But I had a big SGP.
My payout was $500. I was excited.
Oh man, I had a game 3 SGP. Every leg hit except for Bruce Brown, like points or something.
I tell you, I was close on that one in game 3 because I had Rui. Over 10.5. And he started the 4th quarter with 4 points, and I was like, put him in, feed him. And he ended up with like 13 points or something. And I was like, yeah. And then the Nuggets won, and none of it mattered.
Oh, and I was taking D'Lo unders, which were a great bet.
Oh, totally.
I'm going to miss D'Lo.
And then, I love riding a dude's cold streak like that, where you're like, yeah, keep bricking it, man. Your teammates are losing trust in you.
It's so evil and great,
dude.
Bro. It's amazing.
It's so messed up.
And you can get those no sweat same game parlays. I'm sure AJ has some great picks. Those draft props I gave out. Download the app now. Sign up with code DMVR, where new customers can bet $5 and score $150 in bonus bets instantly at DraftKings Sportsbook with code DMVR. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Massachusetts, call 800-327-5050 or visit gamblinghelplinema.org. In New York, call 877-8-HOPENY or text HOPENY. In Kansas, call 1-800-522-4700. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for offer details. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gambling resources. No surprise to anyone, AJ. We went a little longer because we enjoy this stuff.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about some current prospects in the Denver sports landscape.
We skip over Bryce Harper and baseball entirely. We just kept getting derailed with it. But
I know.
It was crazy because I will just say the 2 most hyped baseball prospects that I can remember in my life were drafted in back-to-back years.
It's those
by
guys.
The Nationals. It's Strasburg and Harper.
Harper. It's crazy. And then,
Harper was the long prospect. Like, he was hyped from when he was 15.
Yes. Well, and then he goes like the JUCO route, right?
Yeah, because he won that home run tournament.
Yeah.
When he was 15, he launched one 500 feet, and everybody was like, what the hell is this guy?
Right.
And he was like the big one, and then he did go the JUCO route so he could get drafted earlier,
Right.
Which speaks to his like competitive drive and
Again, it's how
what
you're
an
wired.
absolute maniac that guy ended up becoming.
Dude, yes.
For me, huge Bryce Harper fan. I love him.
I kind of love it too.
And Strasburg was the slower burn because he was the college guy, but it was like by the time his draft rolled around, it was like this is the easiest pick we're gonna make.
Right.
Until the next year when they took Bryce Harper.
Right,
but
exactly.
those are the two guys that I remember. And then my current favorite drafted prospect, I guess he's not a prospect anymore, but Adley Rushman, man. He's the reason that I put money on the Orioles to make the playoffs this year.
A former number 1 overall, right? Like Bryce, drafted as a catcher. Will he stick?
Staying at
He
catcher
will
and
actually
has a chance to have a Buster Posey like career for the Orioles.
Which, geez, that's saying something. Let's stick to baseball, though. We're currently in Denver sports. I think we'd agree as far as star power, as far as who could actually be a franchise player. You start with the top 2 Rockies prospects as far as
crazy
best
because
prospects
I don't
in
know
Denver
that there's
sports.
another prospect, another young player on any of the other Denver teams. There isn't a star in the making on the Nuggets that's a kid.
No, I mean
You have good young role players in Christian Brown. You have
Watson,
you have
Peyton
what you
Watson.
hope will be a really good defensive ace in the hole. In Peyton Watson.
former top recruit. Maybe he's got
Yeah.
a smidge more in him. Yeah,
And you could dream on Kamagate all you want, but until
yeah,
like you have no idea.
yeah. I mean, good defensive backup center at best.
the
is
Avs
the
have cleaned
ceiling.
house on top prospects.
Sean Barons.
It's
would
Sean
be
Barons
worth
and Oscar
mentioning.
Olausen, and Jean-Luc
Yeah.
Foudy has played his way into that conversation.
Just
as
an
well.
N and Ben Myers don't get.
Ben Myers certainly not after 4 goals in 40 games. It's just not going to do it.
That's
but
not great.
Onanen is fine still. I think he's still overhyped by Avalanche fans in particular. And at this point, if the Avs were to get a solid backup out of Eustace, I would be excited. I don't really foresee a starter there much anymore.
That's tough.
But with goalies, you never really know.
That's correct. Yeah, and then Broncos have traded away so many of their first.
and the Broncos are just not in that position right now.
We could talk about Marvin Mims. He's a wide receiver, could get some fantasy hype.
I'm way more excited about Drew Sanders as the young guy there. I think he's going to be
highly ranked.
I think that's a guy that got underdrafted entirely because of position.
Absolutely.
But when it comes to on-field impact, people are going to look around and be like, how did this guy last 70 picks or whatever?
Number 1 athlete in the state of Texas when he comes out.
Yeah.
And playing opposite Will Anderson at Bama for it was kind of his time, and then goes and has the season he had at Arkansas in the SEC with 10 sacks in the SEC. Yeah. That says it.
Nikolai Kovalenko, I know Avs fans like really, really, really love Kovalenko, like the idea of Kovalenko. I would not expect him to be anything more than a third liner in the NHL.
Well, there you go. I mean, and they need to fill out that back 6. So that's not to say some of the guys we've mentioned might
totally
not.
Like you're talking about if you get an NHLer out of Foudy, out of Olausen, out of Kovalenko, if you just get a decent bona fide NHLers, you're thrilled at this point.
Worth its weight in gold for this team.
They don't right now. The Avs just don't have a high end prospect because they've all graduated.
Right. And then they traded away a bunch of picks to capitalize on this championship.
When you have Bowen Byram and Alex Newhook, I know Avs fans feel a certain way about Newey right now, but they need to tone that down. Mm-hmm. And Cale Makar and all these guys, they graduated and now they're in the NHL. Your farm system is totally bare because those guys are now taking your NHL jobs.
100%. So it really comes down to Zach Veen and Adele Amador, the top 2 prospects for the Rockies, right?
So Tovar's not listed as a prospect anymore because he graduated, right? But I mean, you're talking about he's 22? Right. Ezekiel Tovar should be a Gold Glove shortstop. And I've talked about him on this show in the past and on the Rockies show in the past, that he has, I think, legitimate star potential. And we're just seeing rookie growing pains right now.
Right.
We're finding out, hey, look, the guy had a huge breakout and was a dominant minors player the last couple of years. We're getting an idea now, the MLB, there's no hiding in the big leagues.
There isn't, man.
It's been a tough transition there for him, but
I'm glad you bring him up.
that is what this era is for the Rockies is we're trying to find guys that are going to be able to help us in 3 years.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, the last crop of prospects, the Brandon Rogers, the Rymax, underwhelmed.
They flatlined.
They weren't. They never hit the highs because perspective.
Rogers finally breaks in and finally is locked in, and I mean he wins a Gold Glove, which you weren't expecting because defense was never his calling card. Right. But he wins a Gold Glove, and the bat is starting to come around. And then he misses an entire season, and you're just like,
such rotten luck.
Bless
man.
you many times over.
Bless his.
But with B-Rod, you are talking like he was a top prospect. Extremely well regarded in the industry.
I mean,
was high up on BA lists every year. Like
3 middle infielders were taken top 3 that year.
Yeah,
it's Darby Swanson, it's Bregman, and it's B-Raj.
Yeah,
the other 2 have had some nice early returns.
Yeah. I was really surprised at Swanson's free agent market. I thought it was going to be way bigger.
Sometimes though, like the MLB, you hit that threshold, you're just kind of a replacement level guy.
And like shortstops in their prime who are like slightly above average hitters and are fine fielders. You're just like, this is like a landmine of money right here. Like
it's kind of where Rogers is almost finding
like you're
himself
begging to overpay this guy. So
well, that's where Adel Amador, Zach Veen both have some star potential. Veen is
those are your 2 guys.
I mean, if Tovar doesn't qualify,
okay,
who would you have?
I mean, obviously, I think I would have those guys at the top.
You think?
It's hard to ignore what Jordan Beck has done early on, and it's getting a lot harder to ignore what Hunter Goodman is doing. And I don't know, we're talking about star player. I don't know about that.
Jordan Beck is fun.
Yeah, yeah. With Goodman, it's a lot more of you're looking at the fact that he has 12 home runs and 75 at bats or something this year, and you're like,
yeah,
I think he had 33 home runs across 3 different levels last year. Like, you're talking about a dude with a massive power profile, and it's easy to dream when he plays at Coors Field. You're like, because remember when CJ Cron signed with the Rockies, and it was like he's going to hit 50.
Right.
Obviously they still have to play on the road, and it's a lot harder to hit 50 home runs when they all have to come at home. But
right.
You look at Goodman, and you start to see that power profile where you're like, dude.
I mean, those are silly numbers right there. And he's not as highly regarded because he's not playing like a premium position. Right?
Yeah, well, was drafted as a catcher, and
depending on
he's
if
not going to
stick.
stick.
Yeah, so we're talking about a first baseman.
First baseman DH type.
Yeah.
You're talking about a kind of a repeat of the
Luis
Montero profile.
Right.
Can he hit enough? Can he make enough contact? Can he be consistent enough to get to the power?
I mean, fun.
And not to take away, this is really supposed to be about stars, so I'm sorry I derailed, but
not at all. It's about prospects.
Amador is Amador has been on a steady ascent for 3 years.
Yeah, still just 20.
Right, and he is really the only thing about him that I don't currently am not super sold on is the power.
Right.
When you are talking about somebody that's 20.
But I think 27 jacks in the last 3 pro seasons,
I want to see as he gets into higher levels if he can get to that power.
Of course. The bigger thing to me is, does he stick at short? Not that it matters with Tovey there, but like he's high on these lists because he's projected as a short.
Exactly.
If that simple data point was 2B instead of SS, well, he probably drops another 20 spots on some of these lists.
He might,
right?
but then I mean, you are looking at over the last couple of years the Nick Gonzalez and Tamar Johnson guys. Right. You know, it's weird that I picked two guys that are drafted by the Pirates, but they keep drafting second baseman in top 10. It's not my fault.
Right.
You are talking about like really like hit heavy profiles are starting to land at second base a lot more consistently, where that's no longer
can't be a hole
defense
in your lineup.
first,
Yeah.
low offense position.
Right.
They're starting to hide guys who can't stick at shortstop. Instead of putting them in left field, they're putting them at second base.
Exactly. Right.
Where they say, hey, they've got the infielder footwork, they've got some tools that they can work here. They just won't be. And you look at a guy like B-Rod, it's a perfect example of that.
Right.
Rogers was a guy that, is he going to stick it short? He probably could have. But,
yeah.
you know, with Story, it was like, hey, you need to learn some other things. Yeah. And it's the same thing as why Rymack learned how to play second base.
Yep.
Because he was coming up with Arenado at third.
Right.
Like, how are we going to get this guy on the field?
Yeah, and B-Rod probably goes in the hot corner if Rymack isn't there, you know?
Correct.
And Veen's like Denver Sports' Wemby, like tools galore.
Tools for days, man.
Tools
I mean, I wouldn't call him Wemby just because he's such a unicorn, but
Denver Sports Wemby.
He is.
The traits are another tick from, I think, just about anyone else.
The one thing he's got to do is he has got to get an adult in the room to tell him to stop dressing like that. You have got to get rid of that stash hair combo, bro. It's brutally bad. It is a young man that is clearly on his own making decisions for the first time in his life, and they are not going great.
Hey, he's embracing.
Look, you look good, you feel good, you play
vibe,
good, right?
Know?
And he right now, there's a reason he's hitting 240, and it's entirely because of that mustache.
That's all we got to figure out. I'm intoxicated by highlights of him stealing bases. 107 and 3 pro years. Insane for a 6'3" outfielder who could truly be a center outfielder at Coors.
He won't be. He'll be a corner.
You can't put a guy who you're going to rely on offensively at center at Coors, you know, but
especially
the mere fact that it's a conversation is insane.
Especially that they have Benny Montgomery, who needs to figure out how to hit, obviously, if he's going to get to the big leagues. But Benny Montgomery, and then I'm going to laugh when they draft Enrique Bradfield in this upcoming draft.
Right. All of a sudden, who's
another elite defensive center fielder who can't hit. He's basically Jackie Bradley Jr. all over again. So
just go tools, baby.
Yeah, well, that's what they've been doing. They keep drafting toolsy outfielders and trying being like, well, we'll just see how they play.
And then in the later rounds, they're finding the raw power, just taking that raw power.
Yeah, exactly. Wait till the third round to draft your mashers.
Absolutely.
No, I do think though, Veen has a chance to be a legitimate all-star. I mean, did you see him in spring training this year? Every single time he got on first base, he tried to steal.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He was just like, I'm not staying here.
And guys like that are fun. Like,
and they're more valuable in the way that the game has changed this year with the bigger bases and the increased, you know, all the different changes that they have made where base stealing is back, baby. So having a guy with speed is no longer like, well, he can lay down the bunt and get to first.
So dope.
And then just hang out there. No. The running game is back in baseball, and that is a huge part of Veen. I don't know that it's going to be part of Veen's profile forever, like Charlie Blackmon.
Right.
At some point, he lost just enough of a step that it just stopped being part of it.
Yeah.
But still a guy that could give you triples on a regular basis.
No doubt. Yeah, I'm hyped on Veen. I'm hyped on Drew Sanders. I'm hyped on Amador.
I think Amador, Veen, and then the one pitcher that I would say keep an eye on is probably Jody Vargas.
Yeah, the arms need a serious injection in the system.
Going with these super safe college arms.
It's not working.
High in the draft. It's just like you're getting what you're drafting here, where you're getting okay guys here.
It's too many fourth starters.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's too safe. Yeah. You need to take some chances on a little more of an electric arm. It's not the year for it, by the way. This year's draft class is not the year.
It's a bit of a bummer.
Yeah, not the year to take those chances. But I do. There is lots to be excited about with this Rockies farm system, which did have a very, very good year last year. It's off to a slower start on the whole this year. You know, a guy like Drew Romo has lost some luster.
Well, and Veen batting 239 is not great,
exactly. He's off to a slow start, but he had such a slow finish at Hartford last year, and where he is now in Hartford is better than when he left off. It's just that now he's in Double-A, and once you went to Double-A, that's when you really start to get, because we see the Double-A to MLB jump so often now that a guy performing well at Double-A, and Tovar, great example of this. He did not go to AAA and spend a lot of time in Albuquerque. Right. He made the jump.
No doubt. We're going to have to wrap up. Rockies with the 9th pick. That's coming up in July. Stay tuned to DMVR Rockies. Patrick's going to have you covered on that.
Such a block class.
June 22nd, NBA draft. Less interesting, but second rounder for the Nuggets, 40th overall. They'll get something out of that.
The Avs have the 27th pick in the NHL draft.
Not terrible. That comes late June, June 29th.
Whatever that Wednesday is, the last week of June, whatever that Wednesday is.
There you go. We're getting out of here. Thank you to Breck, Avalanche, Amber Ale for presenting us. Check out the MVR Buffs. They're coming up next, where Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders might be on that short list of prospects in Denver sports. We'll see it. Next few months will tell us a lot.
Travis Hunter should be, just given the hype and the two-way.
You'd think. So,
should be.
Buffs guys will have you covered. AJ, thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure. Stay tuned for TDSP next week.